So PlatformCon is awesome, but this is my first PlatformCon live, so this is even more awesome. So thank you for crowding in. And what we want to talk about today is a little bit that platform teams are surrounded by other teams which kind of look like platforms, but are entirely different. And this is one of the big challenges that platform teams can face. And I want to give a little bit of advice how to position and how to explain what is different about your platform than, for example, common services or center of excellences or shared services or all the other things that sort of float around big IT. As we saw in the panel, not so many hands went up when we said, well, who has a fantastic platform, right? Who is done with the platform game? Like 9 or 10 hands went up. And that's understandable because we have high expectations of platforms, right? I often say, large-scale IT can be a little bit depressing place, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. You need to deal with operations, new technology comes, budget gets cut, right? It's always a little bit tough. So we always like to look forward for something that solves all our problems. And if it isn't AI, at least it is platforms. So we have extremely high expectations. So it's understandable, right, that we all not at the finish line, and that is totally okay. But what we need to understand is, well, if we have these aspirations, how is this different than all the stuff that we tried before? And this is where the problem often starts. The platform team makes a presentation to management, and they draw a picture a little bit like this, where we say, look, all these application development teams, they sit on top of the platform, and the platform will solve all your problems. Now, management goes, I've seen this picture before, except there was a slightly different label. This was called shared services, infrastructure and operations, right? So where is the big difference? And I see this even happening where people take existing teams, rename the platform teams, and then they're shockingly surprised that nothing has actually improved. I call this approach, we renamed everything 3 times and yet nothing has improved. Well, go figure. So we are here today to actually improve something. So what we need is we need a better picture. This picture doesn't tell the story. And it's often well-intentioned because we like to make things simpler from management, but I'm always be careful. You're not talking to stupid people. You don't need to dumbify. You don't need to simplify the story. You want to amplify the story. You want to explain what it is about and not draw a picture with, sort of 2 boxes stacked on top of each other. So we were promised we learned something about pyramids. So pyramids teach us a little bit more, but in a slightly different way than we might think. So the idea of having a common layer of stuff is obviously not new. Most of us sit on top of the cloud. Even if you're on premises, you have shared services, you need a database, you need a VM, you file a ticket, you get some stuff, you have common libraries, frameworks, right? There is no shortage of base layers. Right? So obviously platforms play in a little bit of crowded space of base layers, right? This idea is not new. What is new is that the driver, the motivation is different. Most base layers come from an economies of scale perspective. If I do it once, it's cheaper than doing it 50 times, right? And if I can do it once instead of 100 times, well, the economics are even better. So the broader my base, the more common it is, the better off I am because I have better economics. But it's cost-driven. And that's not wrong, right? Nobody has money to give away. But sometimes the cost savings, they in turn reduce productivity. They save cost here, but they incur cost over there. And that is being penny-wise and pound-foolish. So platforms are after speed. They're after velocity. Doesn't mean cost doesn't matter. We still want to do it as cheaply as possible, but we don't want to compromise speed. So if we make one broad brush platform, we get everybody to use the same database or everybody is on the same thing, but it doesn't really fit. It causes friction. It doesn't really do what people need. The left side would still be pretty satisfied because everything is the same standard. The right-hand side would not be happy. So we rather have opinionated platforms, maybe more than one on the right-hand side, because we might be building very different things. The one people build AI, there's mobile applications, there's your grid computing or number crunching kind of things, right? There's all sorts of use cases. Maybe they have different platforms. And if that works well for the teams and makes them productive, on the right-hand side, I would be happy. Well, I guess this is your right-hand side, right? On the right-hand side, I would be happy, and on the left-hand side, I would not be happy, right? So it is quite different. It becomes clearer if you draw the rest of the picture. And here comes my old joke that we stopped building pyramids 5,000 years ago, yet IT is fascinated with pyramids, right? We love to draw these pyramid pictures. Should make you wonder, right? And the reason we love the pyramids is because the economics are so good, the scale economics, right? If I build all this foundation, all I have to do is put the tiny tip, the cherry on the cake, right? And everything will be fine. Yeah, I worked in insurance many years. What you would do, right? You have a base layer of functionality, then you have a specific layer of your lines of business, like life insurance versus automotive versus home insurance or health insurance, right? The different things you have. And when you go into a new market and you want to sell life insurance in a new market, the idea is you have a ready-made product, you just make a little bit of configuration and off you go. It sells really well. The problem is, as architects, we like to look at the assumptions that are baked into something. Whenever we look at something, we are interested in why does this work? What has to be given for this to work? Because it kind of sort of does work. Maybe not perfectly well, but if it was completely broken, these companies would have gone out of business 10 years ago, right? So we can't say it doesn't work at all. So we need to understand when it works and what are the assumptions that are baked into it. And in this case, there's a really important assumption baked in, and that is that you can anticipate everybody's needs. Right? The only reason you get the tip of the pyramid to be small is because you knew exactly what everybody wanted. Now that comes with two catches, right? Two little problems. One is how smart are you, right? Because you got to be very clever to really know everybody's needs. But more importantly, I don't want to anticipate everybody's needs. I want innovation. I want people to have new ideas. I want people to build things that I did not anticipate. In the modern world, right, in an area where things are fast moving, we want innovation, we do not want to anticipate everybody's needs. We want people to have ideas that we did not anticipate. And that's where this problem struggles. And this is where platforms shine, right? Because platforms don't anticipate all use cases. It's something that you build on top of. There's an inverse pyramid. It's like this hourglass shape. I always say this is the ugliest but most important drawing in the book. So I'm the artist, so any complaints go to me, right? But basically, it's a double pyramid. You want more diversity. You want innovation on top. Now, the left sells better, but the right works better. Right? So that's what you're up against. Left looks good but doesn't work well. Right? It's like, all these diverse applications I still have to build. Yes, you do, but that's what innovation looks like. Innovation doesn't come by putting cherries on top of cakes. Right? You bake a different cake. You make something different, whatever metaphor you like. So this is what makes platforms fundamentally different. And we were promised car metaphors, so pyramids and cars. I'm checking off, the metaphors here. Ironically or interestingly, they have proven this to us over half a century ago. Right? One of the biggest fallacies or arrogance, I would say, we have as techies, we always believe we invent everything. Right? Everything is new every year, right? We have new words and new terms and new technology, so we don't look in the rearview mirror enough. So in this case, we can look in the rearview mirror and realize 50 years ago, the car manufacturers all started a platform strategy. Volkswagen, very famous for this. They have an MLB. If you want to practice your German, it's the Modulare Längsbaukasten. Say that 3 times, right? So that's what they have, and it's worked amazingly well for them. Now, the thing to learn from the automotive industry is that the goal was not to make fewer car models, right? They didn't want the pyramid either. They wanted to make more car models. Because more models means more customer groups, better positioning, right? More diversity, more innovation. They wanted more cars. And you can see this very easily. BMW is a good example, right? When I was little, there was a 3, a 5, and a 7 series. That's basically all you could buy. Every once in a while, there was a 6 or M1 or something esoteric, right? But basically, they made 3 models. Now they make over 30 models, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, M1 to whatever, X 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, minis, at least i3, 4, 5, 8, whatever they have, right? They have over 30 models. That is not possible without a platform strategy. So they showed us the goal wasn't, cherry on the cake. The goal was more diversity. Now, the powerful part is you get the economies of speed and more innovation on top, but you still harvest scale economics underneath, making stuff like electric vehicles, lane assist, sequential gearboxes, emission control systems, anti-lock brakes. That stuff is expensive. So you want scale economics underneath, but you have speed economics on top. That's the magic of platforms. And if you look at the cloud, this is exactly what the cloud has done. The cloud is a scale business. They call the hyperscalers for a reason, right? We have a lot of talk these days about sovereign clouds, right? And people say, oh, I'm going to build a sovereign cloud, and I have funding of 50 million. I'm like, that is really nice, but you probably need to add 2 zeros to this to really build the cloud, right? You need not 50 million. You need like probably a couple of billion for that. It is scale business. Data centers, global networks, building new software services, right? It's, well, here's the action, people. But with pictures, it's even better. Can we do? There we go. Good. Thank you. Let's try. Oh, we have a bonus picture, right? So let's see how it goes. So you have the scale economics underneath, right? The cloud is a scale business, but it doesn't pass the scale business on to you. Like every cloud provider has custom silicon these days, right? All the gravitons and TPUs and inferential, what they're all called, right? That is scale business. You're not making custom silicon in your own data center, right? You need a few billion and you need the scale, yet you can get these things for £1 an hour or euro or $1 an hour, right? So scale economics underneath, speed economics on top. And that is indeed magical. That's something we didn't have before, and that's what makes platforms so powerful, right? That it has this characteristic. So coming from this insight that we don't want the pyramid, a good test for platform builders is, have the users actually done something that surprised you? Maybe positively, maybe in a different way, right? Have they done something you did not anticipate? Right? That's what you want. And I built a developer platform some years ago for GovTech in Singapore. It's the IT division of the government. And we had a very interesting story. We made like a software distribution pipeline, CI and CD, right? Continuous deployment pipeline. And we found one project that was super active. They deployed so many times, we couldn't believe it. We're like, oh, they are our best customers. We want to talk to them and profile them. Well, what turned out, they didn't deploy any code. They used it as a data distribution engine. Right? They just, deployed data updates, right? And we're like, wow, that wasn't really what the CI/CD pipeline was meant for, but we were happy because they were able to use the platform for something that we hadn't originally built it for. So it means the double pyramid actually worked. People could innovate on top of it, right? That's what you want. You welcome surprises, right? You want people to do things you didn't anticipate. As you can easily see with services teams, that's less often the case. Operations doesn't like surprises, right? So if you put these two things side by side, if you think about a classic IT service, right? File a ticket, get a virtual machine, right? File a ticket, get a database, maybe a little bit of self-service portal, ServiceNow, Remedy, whatever the stuff you have, right? In the end, it is the exact opposite, right? All these things with scale, they struggle because they lack self-service. Something becomes a bottleneck. You file 50 tickets. It's going to be like, wow, that's going to take some time, right? Versus platforms are self-service based. They thrive with scale because they have scale economics underneath. Onboarding is easy. Yeah, I'm a fractional CTO at the bank right now, and we made a metric for all our internal services. How fast and how expensive is onboarding for a new service, right? You need to get on GitHub. You want maybe a shared runtime service like Kafka. You need an EKS cluster or whatever you do. We have metrics for, is this fully automated? How long does it take and how much does it cost? Can I decommission easily? So we have metrics for how quickly we can provision services and deprovision them. And as you expect, the score is mixed, like in most cases, but we have a clear target picture, right? Responsibility is shared across user and platform. I used to work for AWS, and we always said if you have a brittle, slow, insecure application, you put it on the cloud, well, you still probably have a brittle, insecure, and slow application based on fancier technology, right? It doesn't make all your problems go away. Can we have pictures? Yeah. Is it my laptop? Well, should I just keep going or should we wait for a picture? Just keep going. I'll keep going. So listen to me. Don't pay attention to the slides. All the good content, all the content is here. You'll just miss all the nice cartoons. We will upload the slides later anyhow, right? So it's a shared responsibility model. For shared responsibility, you need transparency. Right? So classic IT service, I had this recently, financial services, we use virtual desktops, right? Things are super slow. And then people are like, come on, this thing is not usable. And they're like, yeah, I found something, I made some change, and magically it's faster, right? That's how IT services go, right? Nobody wants to really tell you because it could be their fault, you don't know, right? People don't like transparency. Platforms are different, right? You want to see what's going on because otherwise you cannot share responsibility. There cannot be a black box. And last one I had on, the domain is also different. IT services live purely in the technical domain. You get a database, you get a VM. Platforms live a little bit higher, and I will come to that hopefully with pictures. So yeah, this one I really kind of do need the picture because it's a slide about drawing the wrong picture. So remember, you guys are smart. So you guys are smart. Remember the two boxes, right? So what is wrong with the two boxes picture, right? IT, basically application and platform IT operations, it looks the same. Why is that? Because a static picture, a boxes diagram, a structural diagram cannot express economies of speed. Because economies of speed are about velocity and movement, and if you only have boxes, right, then that cannot tell the story. So you need a picture that, there you go, look really quickly, it might be go. You need a picture that shows the movement. And what I often say is the platform teams, you are like the bearing. You're not in the loop. The best example is take a cloud provider, take Azure, GCP, AWS. When you deploy a container, do they do anything? Well, of course not, right? Because people deploy 1 billion containers a month, right? They're not in the loop. They do operations, they provision capacity, they manage their services, they build new services. They do 1 million useful things, but they're not in the loop. They don't do anything when you call an API or make a request or deploy something. So as a platform team, you want to help and assist your customers, but you don't want to be in the loop. Right? And a ticket-based system is exactly the opposite, right? Somebody picks up the ticket, right? This is not what platforms do. That's how you cannot get economies of speed. So whenever you find yourself in the loop, make a little marker, right? And automate this piece, find a way to get back out of the loop because you want to be the bearing, you want to be the axle, the grease on the axle, right? You want this wheel to spin faster. So that is the picture you need. You need a picture with speed, otherwise you cannot show the difference. Now, this also, I said, platform teams are surrounded by other teams which look similar but work very differently. I see this that often large companies have a cloud center of excellence, CCOE, and then often the platform team evolves out of this. I'm in a situation right like this because those are the people who have the expertise. They know Terraform and cloud automation, right? So they're well equipped to kind of go make a platform, but the engagement model is completely different, right? A CCOE is a consulting company, if you wish. It's a professional services. They help you get stuff done. The platform team is a product company, right? And we have many stories where large and successful consulting companies try to become a product company, and that didn't go so well, right? So now you're trying to do the same thing inside your company with a handful of people. Not easy. It is very, very different. People are used to calling you up whenever they want something, because that's what the CCOE does. Say, hey, Joe, hey, Jimmy, can you help me with this thing? Because you always help me. And then they say, no, it's now a product, it's self-service. And then they say, oh, that's worse than before, right? So, this whole platform thing, isn't that great? So it is very delicate. This is an important transition to make, but the CCOE cannot scale. Right? You need to get into a product. You need to get into self-service, right? And it's not easy to tell this to your customers. Now, the other candidate is the infrastructure and operations teams. They know the network, they know the VMs, they know all the regulations really well, the certification, the 4I principles, like all this stuff they know really well. So they would also make a good candidate for a platform team, but they also have a completely different way of working, right? They don't like surprises, because usually when a surprise happens, they get kicked, so can't blame them for it, right? And it's ticket-based, and it's all about shrinking the diversity, right? Don't do anything too fancy, make it simple, make it reliable, don't make too many changes, and if you need something, file a ticket. This is also not what we want, right? So they make the best teams in a way from the knowledge they have, but the worst teams from the way of working. So again, you need to, it's a delicate thing. You can take some folks from the infrastructure team, they're a great asset for you, but you need other folks who have the product mindset, who can build a product, something that general IT ops in the past haven't had to do. Because this is what often happens, right? You tell developers that you get the super highway, and yes, there will be some guardrails just in case, but in the end, what gets delivered, right? We build giant guardrails because that's what ops gets penalized for, right? If something goes wrong, they're like, why didn't you catch this? So they build huge guardrails, but then there's no money left for pavement, right? Because they are less penalized for slower software delivery, right? And this is the tension that you have. So yes, you want guardrails, but there's one important lesson here. People don't drive by scraping along the guardrail. A guardrail is not a steering mechanism. A guardrail is an emergency device that hopefully nobody ever hits. So what I tell people is, if you put guardrails, that's great for safety, but you want lane assist. You want projects to not hit the guardrail. So the objective of the platform is to keep the projects on track, to keep them in lane. Hitting a guardrail is a success in a way because you didn't go off the cliff, but it's also a failure because your car is wrecked and the guardrail is wrecked, right? So you want lane assist, you want transparency, feedback for the teams, early warning signals, right? You want teams to auto-correct and stay in lane. And in case you like trains better than cars, right? We're in England here, we love trains, is train wheels stay on track because they're self-centering, right? Train wheels have this big flange in the middle, but that's not how they stay on track. That's again only for emergency or tight turns. They stay on track because of their shape, the conical shape of the wheels. I learned this in the train museum in Japan. Japanese, we love our trains there as well. So they have different shaped wheels, and if they're not shaped like this, they go straight off the rail. Right? Because the wheel has a different size depending where it is on the track. It's conical. So if it shifts, the wheel effectively becomes bigger and it steers back. So this is a low friction steering mechanism that doesn't rely on guardrails, served us well for 150 years, and high-speed trains still work the same way. So you can have steering with low friction. Right? But that's not what a guardrail does. That's for absolute emergency if you go off the road and something bad is going to happen to you. Now, there's another temptation that is dangerous. And I mentioned the pyramid on left, it sells really well. So the temptation is always there to make the platform bigger. And over time we should, but it's a delicate affair. So the automakers, this time the US guys, you can tell I like German cars, I don't like the American cars as much, right? Yeah. So they have to be the bad example, sorry about that. So what they did, they had the great idea of saying platform is good, but making a new car model every time is still expensive. right? It's cheaper than from scratch because I have the platform, but it's still not so cheap. So why don't I take an existing car, tweak it just a tiny bit, I put all the options in and stuff, and I stick a different label on it. And now it's a new car. Great idea for the company, not a great idea for the customers, right? And this has a name. It's called the Cadillac Cimarron effect, where they took a Chevy Cavalier, put all the options in, power windows, nice stereo, metallic paint, automatic transmission, right? And they said, this is now a Cadillac. And the customer said, well, no, it isn't, right? This is still a Chevy Cavalier. So nobody wanted to pay for this Cadillac, which was actually a Chevrolet. Does not work. It's tempting, but basically what happens is you're always tempted to shrink the top part of the pyramid because it's software development, it's time consuming, it's expensive, right? You always try to make this small, but if you make this too small, the thing starts to look like a pyramid again, and that's where you started and that's where you didn't want to be. Right? So you need to counter-steer the temptation to anticipate all needs. You want to develop new products. There's nothing wrong with software delivery. There's nothing wrong with innovation. There's nothing wrong with building new products. So this temptation, you always need to counter-steer. So there's two more differences, or one more difference and one conclusion. One of in the table that you couldn't see, the last one was about the domain. And I mentioned that the IT services live in the technical domain, and platforms live in a slightly higher domain because they want to make abstractions. Remember our buzzword bingo, or we reduce cognitive load. Well, how are you going to reduce cognitive load? Well, you make some abstractions. You make something easier to use or more expressive, right? So you amplify certain aspects. Now, that is very hard to do in the purely technical domain because you're second-guessing a cloud provider. I'm like, they guess pretty well. They're pretty smart. So second-guessing the cloud provider isn't like a great thing to do, and things change all the time. So platform teams have one big advantage, and that is you only have to build for your business. You don't have to build for the whole world. You know your domain much better than the hyperscaler. They have to build for everybody. You don't. So by understanding your domain, you can start making higher level services that blend the business domain and the technical domain, right? So you have a customer, right? That's a concept you have, or a ledger. The technical service is a database, so now you can make things like a ledger database, something that has change data capture and basically keeps an audit log of all changes, right? It's a business concept, ledger, that's banking, right? Plus a database. Or you can make a database that is suitable for customer data, right? The cloud provider will never build that for you because only you know what customer data means, your local regulations, your own internal processes, right? This is something only you can build. So as a platform team, if you go up from the technical domain a little bit closer to the business domain, it's not like you're making pure business objects. You're merging business and technical domain. There you have a great playing field. You really add value, and you're doing something that the cloud provider cannot, because they have to build for everybody. They can give you all the settings, but they will never give you the database that is suitable for your customer data to be in, right? That's what the platform team does. Now here comes the last surprise. So I made a whole argument about how building platforms is not like IT services, but there's a funny catch. If you're a platform team that runs services on behalf of your organization. So I work with many organizations. The standard is always Kubernetes cluster, right? We make it easy. We pre-configure clusters for you. Now, very quickly, you have a situation where you have 20, 30, 50 Kubernetes clusters, and suddenly you get some interesting questions. Well, which of these are still regularly used? Are they all on the latest version? How many versions are they behind? Are they on extended support? Like EKS gives you extended support, but the control plane price is 6 times higher. So you kind of want to know where those are. And I always laugh a little bit when this happens because welcome to the world of IT service management, right? This is the stuff you wanted to get away from, but the operational aspect of your platform, that doesn't go away. And interestingly, just a month ago, or like 4 weeks ago, Amazon AWS released an EKS dashboard, something that many platform teams have probably built. We built one. It's now available as a cloud service to give you an overview. I call this fleet management. You can look at all your clusters, versions, utilizations, updates, right? So it's a funny thing. That is the conclusion that as a platform team, the product you build is not an IT service at all, but yet you manage it internally like an IT service. And that is a great message. I want to leave you with one more item. We have a book sale. If you like this kind of way of thinking around platforms, we have some books that we sell roughly at cost, and it will be out on the right during the coffee break. So please stop by. If you don't want to carry stuff or kill trees, get an ebook, also good. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the talk. Thank you very much.